Good morning, everybody. My name is Eddie Martucci. I am the pharmacy manager at the Big Y Pharmacy in Walpole on Route 1. And I'm here today at the kindness and generosity of the Walpole Senior Center Council on Aging to talk to you about CBD oil. A little bit about me. I came to Massachusetts about 3 years ago. I was a pharmacist. I've been a pharmacist for many years. I was a pharmacist for 30 plus years in Connecticut. I owned my own pharmacy. We had a family pharmacy. We did a lot of different things. I believe in education, and I believe in providing information to the community. And Big Y also provides that, as they provided this lunch for you here today. And I want to thank our staff in the deli, Ariana, to get going, because she does a really good job. Her staff does a really good job putting things together. Of course, I think I'm going to have to bring more salads next time because we're kind of out of them. I did my pharmacy training at the University of Connecticut School of Pharmacy in Storrs, Connecticut. I graduated with a BS in pharmacy. I then went on and got a PharmD through the Connecticut Pharmaceutical Association. And I also did a lot of other trainings. I was a certified diabetic educator at one time, certified asthma therapist, worked with the insurance companies in inner city Hartford to teach the children how to use their inhalers properly. But today we're going to talk about CBD oil. It's a very huge topic that is relevant to us today. In Massachusetts, we have a legalized recreational marijuana law. And that was passed in 2016, November of 2016, and sales began in April of that year, of 2018, to have recreational marijuana. Now, the recreational marijuana, those marijuanas have THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, in it, and that's the psychoactive component of cannabis and hemp. But in 2018, I probably should go to the next screen. It tells us what our objectives are, and these are our objectives today. We're going to define what CBD is. Mostly it's in oils that are put in different ways for our body to take. We're going to define the Hemp Farming Act of 2018 that President Trump signed into law. We're going to discuss what our endocannabinoid receptor systems are and how those effects happen when we stimulate those receptors in our body. We'll talk about the scientific data of CBD, and we're going to talk about the uses that we can use it for, what the claims are, and any interactions with medications that we take today. This is what cannabis looks like, or hemp. They both look very similar. And because I'm a chemistry guy, I put the structure of cannabidiol on there. That's what CBD stands for. CBD is cannabidiol, and it is the non-intoxicating cannabinol that's found in cannabis and in hemp. So this doesn't give you the psychoactive reactions when you ingest this into our bodies. The Hemp Farming Act took place, happened in 2018. It was introduced by a senator out of Kentucky named Mitch McConnell. And what it was intended to do was to remove hemp from Schedule 1 and make it just a regular, ordinary agricultural commodity. Let me talk to you a little bit about what the schedules are. In Massachusetts, there are 6 schedules of drugs. It goes from 1 to 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are controlled drugs and varying in severity of control, and 6 is legend drugs. Those are drugs that you have to get a prescription for from your doctor, for like your blood pressure medication, your heart medication, cholesterol medication, things like that. The schedules 3, 4, and 5 are more controlled from 3 than 4, more controlled of 4 from 5, and those are drugs that are only good for 6 months from the day they're written. They can't be called into pharmacies here in Massachusetts. They have to be either sent by electronic means or faxed to us with a cover letter that says it really came from the doctor's office. And they're only good for 6 months from the day they're written. And the differences in 3, 4, and 5 have to do with its propensity to be abused and its propensity for our body to become dependent upon those substances. Schedule 5 are things like cough syrups with codeine in them. Robitussin with codeine. I'm pretty sure most of us have had to take that once or twice in our lifetimes when we have a cold. Schedule 4 drugs are drugs like our benzodiazepine drugs that are used for relaxation and for sleep, like lorazepam and Xanax or alprazolam, clonazepam. And Schedule 3 are Tylenol with codeine drugs, Furanol with codeine, phenaphen with codeine, pain pills mostly that have codeine in it. Then we go to Schedule 2, which are the more highly controlled drugs that a pharmacy has. Those are the ones that live in my safe. Those we can only fill once. They can't have any refills. They have to only be sent to us by electronic means or written prescriptions from the doctors. Actually, as of January of 2021, they will all have to be electronic from then on. Governor Baker passed that law. It was supposed to take effect this January, but hospitals couldn't retool all of their computers in time to do that, so he let it go for another year. And those are your drugs that are mostly for pain. They're the opiate pain pills. There's some opiate cough syrups that are in that. And there are also drugs used for ADHD, the stimulant medications. Now, Schedule 1 is what hemp was under. Schedule 1 drugs are those drugs that are only used in studies. And pharmacies have to be highly controlled and managed to even have that. It would be one pharmacy, 4 or 5 doctors. People have to apply to become part of those studies. And they've done things on psychoactive drugs like LSD, on heroin, marijuana. Marijuana did have a drug that came out that we used to use for nausea and vomiting due to cancer patients, and we also used to use it for narrow-angle glaucoma called Marinol, but that is not available anymore. It wasn't really a huge seller. They've found better things for those options. So those are the differences. So what it really wanted to do was to take it away from being a Schedule 1 drug. So hemp is defined as cannabis that contains less than 0.3% THC. And as I said earlier, THC is tetrahydrocannabinol, and that is the psychoactive component of marijuana. So any hemp that can be sold has to have 0.3% or less of THC in its volume. The THC is the one that stimulates our CB1 receptors. Those are mostly in our brain, some in our gut as well, our GI tract. And those are the ones that allow the delayed release of neurotransmitters when we have an action, whether we have a thought or a stimulus or we tell our hand to do something. It delays the release of that to happen, so we do things a little bit slower. That's really easy, right? We understand all that. But really, what does it really mean to us? What it means that when we tell our hand to squeeze on that bottle of water, it takes a fraction of a second for our hand to squeeze. But when we're on THC, when we stimulate our CB1 receptors, it takes us a little longer to grab that. So it takes us a little longer to respond to somebody talking to us. It takes us a little longer for us to respond in our reaction time. It makes us feel relaxed and euphoric and complacent like my little friends, the frogs there. When I put that slide up, my 27-year-old daughter, who's a 4th grade teacher, wanted to know what the names of the frogs were. I had no answer for her. And the real reason for the Hemp Farming Act was so that hemp farmers could remove it from Schedule 1, so they would be allowed to use water rights to be able to grow their products and crops, agricultural grants to, again, increase their field space, maybe increase their yield by buying machinery, and to use traditional banking systems. In Connecticut, it's a little different. Connecticut doesn't have a recreational marijuana law. They do have a medical marijuana law, but because marijuana is still illegal according to the federal government, they can't use banking systems. One of my friends owns a couple of dispensaries, and he has to have armed guards that take the stuff to a safety deposit box, and he has to have bulletproof glass because you can't use the traditional banking systems. You can't use credit cards. You can't use EBT cards. You can't use your debit cards on them. It allows hemp to be grown, cultivated, and packaged. It allows it to be imported and exported, transported across state lines, and it can be sold as long as it has less 0.3% THC, and it's mostly as CBD oil. And all the different forms that CBD takes are capsules and tablets, liquids that we can ingest orally, gummies, creams and ointments, topical sprays and gels that we apply topically. That makes it a supplement in the United States of America. And a supplement based on the Dietary Supplement Health Education Act of 1994 that President Clinton decided to sign, states that manufacturers may bring a product to market, but they're responsible for the safety data in humans. And the only other thing that they can't do is they can't make misleading or false claims, and they can't say that it cures a very serious disease. What does that mean in our terms? It means that a supplement just has to be proven to be safe. It doesn't have to be proven to be effective at all. So it just has to be safe in humans. And they don't have to tell you that data unless there's a problem. I mean, if you called the company and asked them for the data, they could give it to you. But I don't know if they would or not, but they can give it to you because they have that. But they don't have to release that data to the FDA unless there's a problem. FDA is the Food and Drug Administration. They run all of my drugs in the back. If you guys come in and get your medications, what I count out, they're the ones that control how I store it, how I buy it, how I sell it. But the FDA is not part of any supplement. So all it has to be is proven to be safe in human beings. In the United States, those things that are supplements are vitamins, minerals, herbals, and botanicals. Could be an amino acid, could be a concentrate or a metabolite, and it could be a diet. I love this sentence because the federal government makes these rules. So it's a dietary substance for use by humans to supplement the diet by increasing total dietary intake. Again, I can put that other screen up with all the question marks, because all that means is that you're taking it to add something to your diet, whether you're adding vitamins or calories or something you need or maybe something you don't need. It's up to them as the manufacturer to tell you what you're using it for. They just can't make a false claim. They can't say, for instance, there's plenty of claims out there for CBD. They can't say CBD oil will make you grow your hair because it won't do that. We don't do a really good job in the US of studying our supplements, our nutritional supplements, whether they're natural or not. Only 2 countries on our planet do, Germany and China. And Germany has the Commission E, which if you go online, you can do the Commission E on Germany, and they have a lot of data on natural products. St. John's wort is a natural product. It's hesperidin root. It's used for depression and as a mood elevator. It's prescribed more in Germany than any chemical entity used for depression. And they have all the data on that. And China has been using herbal supplements since 900 AD. So what could go wrong, right? Vaping was one of those supplements that came out. Nothing can go wrong with that, right? Nothing at all goes wrong with vaping. When the studies were done with vaping, they used low heat. They used authorized products that used approved diluents or solvents from specific manufacturers that were approved by the FDA. And they were used with the stipulation that you should change your smoking device, your pipe, your cigarette, your e-cigarette, whatever you're using, every 3 months. But that didn't happen because to get the plume, or what they call the effluent, to get a real big one of those, you need to use high heat. So people were using high heat. Approved companies had expensive products. Approved companies had expensive products. So they went to second-hand places to buy things. And it was expensive to keep replacing your device every 3 months, so people didn't do that. And what happened was a lot of the solvents that were causing the problem was vitamin E acetate, which got into our lungs. It caused a pneumonia of sorts, and it killed people. 60 people died. 2,700 people were hospitalized. They also had, in their lungs, they found bits and pieces of certain metals, aluminum and nickel and cadmium, and those were parts of the pipe itself because they were using high heat for a long period of time. The pipe itself was breaking down, the e-cigarette was breaking down, and that was getting in our lungs, well, those who vaped. So Governor Baker shut it down for about 4 months to say that until they found out that you can only buy them at the approved places. Are we still going to have a problem? Probably. It's like prohibition, right? In the 20s, you couldn't buy or drink alcohol, but people got it, and people were making methanol in their bathtubs and going blind. So the biggest problem, or what's the catch with that, is quality. And this is in honor to my wife because she loves to play Scrabble. And that would be a really great word, too. Quality. How do we know what quality we have? In 2019, CBD products started to become on the market from the internet. So the FDA ordered 72 different brands of CBD, and they assayed them themselves in their government labs to check for the amount of THC. Only 40% had the listed correct amount of THC. Michael, nice of you to join us. Michael and I golf sometimes. He beats me all the time, so I'm going to give him a little ribs. Only 40% had the correct amount, labeled amount of THC in there. If you have more than 0.3% THC, federally, that becomes illegal. And that's why you don't find a lot of pharmacies that will sell CBD, because they're not sure of what the product has in it. And if it's illegal federally, the FDA can come in and say, this is incorrect. You have too much in there. We're going to take away your pharmacy license to sell drugs, because the FDA controls us. So that's why, big Y, pharmacies in Massachusetts do not sell CBD oil. I will tell you that we did partner with a company out of Los Angeles, and we do sell them in our gas stations in Western Mass and the Berkshires. So, and the FDA to date has sent over 40 letters to companies citing them that they are in violation of the Hemp Farming Act of 2018, saying that they had too much THC, saying that they added CBD to food products, which is not allowed, saying that they added CBD to animal feed, like cows and pigs and turkeys and things that we eat from the grocery store, which they're not supposed to do. And also, there are a couple of companies that claim that they would cure serious diseases, and the FDA said that's a no-no. The problem is there isn't really a lot of teeth in that law. Their regulations are there, but their enforcement of them isn't all there. So the companies got the letters. Maybe they're going to change. Maybe they're not. The two different are endocannabinoid system that I talked about. CB1 are the receptors found in our brain, spleen, and GI tract. And CB2 are found in our white blood cells, and again in our tonsils and our spleen. If we stimulate CB1, it slows our reaction time. It makes us feel relaxed, euphoric, and complacent. So those are the claims that they say CBD will use for your stress, used to help you sleep. And then CB2 activation, which are on our white blood cells, helps our bodies to fight off things that are not us, viruses, bacteria. That's when they say it's claims to help us do better in life, to be more resilient, to be able to fight off a strain, maybe the coronavirus is one of the things. Also, our defense mechanisms are integral in our anti-inflammatory cascade action to protect our joints. So that's where they get that CBD helps with arthritis and things like that. In our own system that we have that have the CB1 and 2 receptors, we have our body makes our own chemical entity, which looks very similar to the CBD, called anandamide, and that stimulates those. So these are the ones, this is the drug, the chemical entity. It's not really a drug. Nobody makes it that way. Our body makes it. This is the one that you hear the runners talk about when they get their runner's high, because that will go and stimulate the CB1 and CB2 receptors. It also stimulates our mu receptors in our brain to make us feel good. So those runners who run and all the time and have to run every day or exercise every day, that's what anandamide is, the little chemical entity our body makes that allows us to feel that way. When we stimulate 1 or 2, CB1 or CB2, these are all the different things that can be affected by the endocannabinoid system. Our long-term memory, our appetite, our physical exercise, stress response, our immune response, Analgesia means pain. Thermoregulation is our body temperature. And sleep. Mr. Marley, you snuck in. I didn't see you. So let's talk about the science of CBD. I'm a science guy. I look for studies to make sure that things are right. I want to make sure that the information I know is supported. This slide is very difficult to read, but I have it here for is just to illustrate all of the different scientific papers, studies that were done, that were submitted in the year 2017 all over the world. So the United States had 310,000 scientific studies done. There's well over 2 million studies done in the world of all different things, not just what we're talking about today, because this is the only scientific study that they have on CBD. This is the only one that was done. It's for a drug called Epidiolex. It's a 98% CBD extract. It's used in pediatric and adolescent seizures, 2 different kinds, but that's the only study they have. So when I talk to you about what kind of interaction CBD may have with the drugs you're taking, they come from this study. So what will CBD do for you? Sorry for you guys that are Patriots fans. I'm a Giants fan, so if you're going to be a superstar, you're going to be LT. Mr. Marley, you're going to be LT. Will it make you rich? Will it make you beautiful? Will it make you intelligent? Will you be able to find that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow when you're chasing the leprechaun down next month? These are all the claims, and they're not substantiated. I don't want to have you think that all of these things is what CBD will do. These are just the claims they have. So you can see it's a myriad of different things that they use. Any data that we have on CBD, any data at all, is all anecdotal because there isn't a study done. There's no scientific study. When we do a scientific study, we want it to be a double-blind crossover study where people don't know what they're taking or when they're taking it. But you're never going to see any of those studies because now it's legal. So you're not going to see it. A company isn't going to spend $2 or $3 million to bring a drug to market when all they have to do is say, hey, it's safe. I can prove it's safe, so I don't have to show you that it really works for what I'm telling you it works for. And again, as I said, the only evidence that we have is from this study on Epidiolex. That's the only evidence that we have. The only evidence we're going to have. So from that study, we know that CBD, which is cannabidiol again, interferes with our cytochrome P450 enzyme system in the liver. And what that system does is it eliminates probably 80% of the drugs that we take, 80% of our medicinal drugs that we take, probably about 60 to 70% of the supplements and vitamins that we take. This system works on it. And if you have THC and CBD in high doses in your body, it's going to slow down the removal of those other drugs. That could be important. For instance, warfarin is affected by the cytochrome P450 system. Warfarin is Coumadin. It's a blood thinner. It's very highly protein bound. 95% of what you take gets bound to a protein. That can't do anything. That can't help thin your blood. Only 5% can. So if you take something that removes 5% or increases the amount in there by 5%, you're doubling the therapeutic effect of your warfarin. So that's where the problem is. It's kind of like when you're going on 95 to Boston, you have to go to 93. Everybody has to go to 93. So 93 is only 30 miles an hour, even though the posted speed limit is 65. Same situation. You just can't have that many cars going on the same roadway. We can't have multiple different drugs being eliminated by the same enzyme system and get out as efficiently as it used to. Some of the drugs that we take on an everyday basis, I know I take 2 of these, that are affected by the cytochrome P450 system are amiodarone, which is used for our blood pressure. We have cimetidine for stomach, omeprazole stomach, verapamil for our heart and for our blood pressure. Echinacea, warfarin, of course, I already mentioned. Echinacea is a natural product that helps our immune system. So if we're not feeling well or getting close to a cold, you can take echinacea and it will help you fight it off a little bit. Or if you're going to see your grandchildren because they're little petri dishes of all kinds of diseases, You can take that, and that might help. St. John's wort, as I mentioned earlier, is for a positive mood. So what we need to know is, will CBD cure me? What will it do? I can tell you through the anecdotal data that was done, these are things that many people have said. So the more people that say it works for them, it doesn't really mean it happens, but it means that this is what we have the most data on. So the things that it really has anecdotally been shown to do is it does help us go to sleep quicker. It helps us sleep longer. Will it interfere with some of our other drugs? It could. It could. It helps with joint pain and anti-inflammatory responses. So people who have arthritis, whether it's rheumatoid or osteoarthritis, your joint pain you have there, you have swelling in the joints. So it does help with there. Now, if you take and use it as a rub or a topical application, you're not going to get a lot of it absorbed into your bloodstream. So you're probably not going to have the interactions that you would if you were taking it as a tincture or a capsule or a gummy in the shape of Lawrence Taylor. It probably wouldn't do that. It also is proven anecdotally, it's not proven, sorry. Anecdotally, a lot of people say that it does help with general anxiety, but only acute general anxiety. So the first parts of general anxiety. So maybe if I was nervous before I got up to speak, I might take some CBD and that would help me relax. Or if I had to take a big exam, it might help a little bit. But it doesn't help in general anxiety, chronic general anxiety, people who are nervous about everything. It really doesn't. It wears off. And then people then will take more because they think, well, it worked at the beginning, so I just have to take more, which isn't always true. And if you're going to buy some, you're going to have to do your due diligence on that, and I'll talk about that in a second. It also has shown anecdotally to relieve stress because it makes us complacent, because even the CBD stimulates our CB1 receptors. So it makes us a little more relaxed and things like, we can have it. There's an old saying there that in life, it's 10% about what happens to you and 90% about how you react to it. Well, maybe this will help you to react a little less stress to it. I could have used some this morning because everybody was supposed to be to work at 9 o'clock, was not there at 9 o'clock this morning. It does help with glaucoma, and with CBD we do have the studies to show that it helped with narrow-angle glaucoma, but there are better drugs on the market now, so they fell out of use. The Marinol fell out of use. And for nausea and vomiting that's due to chemotherapeutic agents, that was a proven fact, but again, there are better drugs out there. Zofran is much better, much cleaner, no drug interactions. So that's what they talk about with that. So after we're done, should you all go out and run out and buy it? Should you go run out and buy it? You should do your due diligence. And what I mean by doing your due diligence, you have to check with your doctor first. Whenever people take any kind of supplement, you should always tell your doctor what you're taking, just so that they have it known. Because if something happens, they can maybe say, well, when did it happen? Oh, I noticed here, you said that for 2 months you've been taking it. 2 months ago you started this new supplement. So let's try stopping that for a little bit and see how that works. You can go to your pharmacist and say, can you look at my list of medications and see if CBD would interact with that? Is it going to interact with the cytochrome P450 enzyme system? And you should research the company to look at what they have on the label. Now, I've done quite a bit of research on companies that are out there. It's important to know whether it's an isolate or full spectrum. The difference is that an isolate has no THC in it at all. The safest way and most efficient way to isolate CBD from hemp or cannabis is to use a CO2 extraction method, but that's very expensive. So those products are going to cost a little more. Full spectrum is going to have THC. It can have up to 2% THC in it. But if it's being sold as CBD, it has to have less than 0.3%. But they do have both of those. Now, in the research that I've done with different companies, you're going to laugh at this, but we're next to Palumbo's. And in May, Palumbo started selling CBD. So I went over to see what they had, because I wanted to know, what do you got? And they had 2 whole displays of CBD. They were gummies and capsules, and they were labeled mild, moderate, and strong. And it had no designation. And, you know, we're a science guy, so when you come in with your HCTZ, I'm saying, well, is it 12.5 milligrams? Is it 25 milligrams? Is it 50 milligrams? There was no milligram strength on there at all. There was no percentage on there. It didn't even mention whether it was cannabidiol or THC or anything. So those are things you have to do, though. As I said, Big Y has partnered with Medterra. They're a Los Angeles company. They have their bottles labeled as to what strength they're giving you. They have how much THC is in each of the bottles, if it contains it. They also are assayed at their own lab. They own their own lab, so they send you a sheet that shows you their PK numbers that they passed, the assay of less than 0.3% with each batch that you buy, the company that sells it to you. There's another company in Florida called PharmaCanna. This company is it's run by pharmacists, not that that's good, bad, or indifferent, but they also have it assayed, but they have it assayed independently at a different lab. And they, again, send you the form to show you with each batch that you bought that you have 0%. They only sell isolate. They don't sell any full spectrum. And then the last talk I gave last week, I gave this talk in Canton, and there was a woman there who represents a company called Green Compass out of Wilmington, North Carolina. So I did my research on them, and I called them, and they called me back 2 days later, and I spoke at length with the gentleman there, one of their scientists. They have their own medical director. They have their own quality assurance programs. They also label what's on there, and they do their own independent lab testing. So those are what you have to do. Now, if you buy it, how are you going to do all this work and find out where it is if you're unsure of buying it online? If you went to a reputable place, so if you went to a recreational or medical marijuana dispensary, they have CBD as well, and they probably have a company. Their companies, I'm sure, are reputable. I can't guarantee each company that they have, but that's probably more to the point that they're going to be more reputable because they have to be assayed by the FDA if they're recreational or medical marijuana. So you have to do your due diligence to have that, to do your CBD, if you're going to use it. That being said, make sure you tell your doctor. Is it going to hurt you to do it? Probably not. I tried, the Medterra gave us samples, so I golf. Not well, Michael, yes, I know. I golf, and I broke an ankle, I dislocated a shoulder because I thought I was an athlete when I was younger. And so I always take an ibuprofen beforehand so that I don't feel sore when I'm done getting beat by Michael. But I took a CBD tablet from them. I took 1,000 milligrams with 0% THC. It was an isolate. It didn't really do anything to me. Do I have to just do one try and see if it works? Probably not. You probably have to do more than that. But I gave up after one. It didn't really do anything for me. I've had people, again, anecdotally, who are customers of ours, who use it topically for arthritis, who put it on and say, if I use it every day, it's okay. I'm not 40 years old again. You know, one of the guys is 70. He says, it's not like I'm 40 again, but it's okay. You know, if I don't use it for a week or so, I find that I'm a little stiffer getting up in the morning. So is it helping him? Probably. Is his brain telling him that it's better, so he's better? Maybe. The placebo effect is our brain saying we're taking something for a malady, and so we're going to get better is very strong. It even works in cardiac drugs, which you have an endpoint to see how your QRT interval is when you do an EKG. I want to talk really quickly about something called cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, or CHS. This is if you're getting a product that isn't really reputable and you're getting high doses of THC and you're using it every single day, normally ingesting it orally, whether it be a capsule, tablet, gummy, or liquid that you're putting in your food or just taking by itself a tincture. What this is cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. There's 4 different sites. It's a cyclical syndrome, and it happens with people who use marijuana daily or mostly daily with THC, high levels of THC in it. There's a prodromal phase, which kind of is analogous to women in their first trimester of pregnancy. They feel nauseous in the morning. They don't really feel themselves. They have a decreased appetite. Then there's the emesis phase, where they're vomiting a lot, and they can vomit up to 5 times an hour. Then they go into recovery, and into remission where they're fine and normal again. The problem is that it's cyclical, so what happens is in the prodromal phase, because they're losing their appetite, anecdotally, marijuana makes you have a better appetite. When Colorado first started selling marijuana in 2015, they opened their first recreational dispensary, and some really, really, really smart lady, and most of you ladies out there are smarter than us guys, some really smart lady brought her Girl Scout troop up, and in 5 hours they sold 4,000 boxes. Really bright. So it does increase your appetite, anecdotally again. Marijuana does do that. So what they're going to do is they're going to increase their usage, which is actually bad for them. Then they're going to stop while they're throwing up, because you don't really want to do anything when you're throwing up all the time. In your recovery phase, you're getting back to feeling normal again, and then when you're in remission, you feel normal, you're going to start using marijuana again, if that's your mindset, if that's what you do, if that's what you like to do. So that's something that is, and they found, and now they're starting to do studies on it, they found that the only thing that helps to make it go away is taking hot baths or showers, or using chili powder spreads, which is capsaicin that they use for arthritis, rubbed on the abdomen. And that helps it. And in the emergency rooms, I know that I had a CE continuing education down in Connecticut last year, where the gentleman who runs the Poison Control Center gave the talk on this, and he said it was amazing, but they're starting to do their own studies on it to see that it really does work. If they spread the people's bellies with capsaicin cream, then they don't feel sick anymore, and it makes them go away. They don't have any mechanism of action or why that happens, but again, anecdotally, we find things. And serendipitously and anecdotally, that's how things work. Gabapentin, I'm sure you've heard of gabapentin. It was originally built as a seizure drug. It was an adequate seizure drug. It wasn't great, but it was adequate. It did okay. But people found that for nerve pain, it's really good. So that's why a lot of times now it's prescribed for nerve pain, even though there really weren't studies done to show that it helps nerve pain. Do we have any questions? That's the end of my CBD talk. Yes?
This question isn't directly related.
Okay. Are you going to talk about the airspeed velocity of a sparrow carrying a coconut?
No.
Because I don't know that one.
Talk about pharmacies.
Yes.
And what will a pharmacy consider legal ID other than something from the
For
PMP?
what are you trying to, oh, for the PMP? If you're picking up a controlled substance, you have to have a photo ID.
Yes.
So there really isn't a direct list of everything that's there, but it's a driver's license or a state ID. It can be a license to carry, your pistol permit. That is another legal option, because it has an identification number and you're registered. So anything that you are registered of and you have a personal or a private identification number that's linked to you could be considered, as long as it's your picture that's there.
How can you get something like that without going to DMV?
You can go to AAA. You have to go somewhere. You can't do it online. They haven't figured that out yet. But you have to go somewhere to get it. There is another thing, and this came up to me, and I saw it right before my talk, and I tried to get information on it. It's called the Cannabis Commission card. So I don't know if any of you have seen that. It's a really nice green card. It's got a picture of, well, it has this picture on it. It has that picture on it. Not the exact colors, but it has that picture on it. And what it is it's for medical marijuana. And what it does is it gives you a discount when you go to buy either CBD or medical marijuana from approved retailer. You have to go to see a specific doctor. It's a $200 fee, paid cash. They don't bill it to your insurance. And then it's a $50 a year application fee to get this card. A gentleman asked me about it. I went online to try to find out what it was, and I got some nice data that said that their mission statement is for the proper and respected use of CBD and marijuana. But when I tried to call somebody, the phone just rang. So I don't know what it was, but I found out through some people who, actually one person who used it as a photo ID. I asked her about that, and she told me what it was. Yes, ma'am?
Do you know if the Sharon dispensary is open yet?
I do not. I live in Canton, and my pharmacy practice where I work for Big Y is Walpole, so I don't know. I'm sure that you'd be able to find that through mass.gov to figure out when it's going to be on. Yes, Mr. Marley?
How much does it cost, and can I buy one, get one?
Of what?
CBD,
The costs are all over the place. It depends on where you're getting it from. The ones in Palumbo were $9.95 for 10 little gummies. I didn't buy them. But if you go to a place that's going to be selling you a pure isolate, and they have the data to back that up, you're probably going to pay better than $30 for a month's supply, probably between $30 and $80 for a month's supply. And can you get one? You'll have to ask Evelyn that. That's his wife. It's not his decision, and he should know better. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Why is there such a huge range in the price? I mean, I know it's not regulated, so everybody can make it. I mean, there's,
Well, it is regulated as to how you can make it. That's what the hemp farming law of 2018 is.
Right.
It's a regulation and price. I don't know, why does Bernie's have a Magnavox TV for $1,000 and somebody else sells it for $12?
so if you have 2 bottles of CBD and it says 750, okay, and we have 2
Are they the same manufacturer?
different manufacturers, okay, so,
It would depend on their extraction process. CO2 is not the only extraction process to bring CBD out of cannabis or hemp, but it is the most efficient and it is the safest. You don't have any ancillary or leftover products from that whenever you do anything. A lot of times when you dissolve something in a solvent, some of that solvent stays with it. So if you're using something that could be toxic or harmful to the body, then that might still be in there. It also depends on the company. If the company is in for the short term, they're probably going to sell it cheap because they want you to buy it.
right, but we don't know that as.
Correct. That's why I said you have to do your due diligence.
Right, and I've done hours worth of due diligence.
Okay.
And the range,
What'd you come up with?
I came up with.
What'd you try?
I've tried Charlotte's Web, which is a very good program.
Mm-hmm.
CBD. I've tried,
One thing, let me just take that one other step. I looked on, you can find anything online to support whatever belief you want. There are studies out there to support whatever belief you want. The first time I gave this talk, the first 2 times I gave this talk, I gave it to my darling wife, who is the brightest woman I know. And so she wants me to do well, but she doesn't want to make it easy for me. So she did a whole lot of research on stuff. So the second time after I did it, she said, okay. And she pulled up on the computer these websites that she went to. And there was a website that was set up almost like a syllabus for curriculum of a university. So it said cannabis, it said CBD 101, and then it said our research, and then it said who our faculty is. And it was just a company selling CBD oil. Now the differences are the websites that I go on to the NIH, National Institutes of Health websites. I go on to CNN has a very good website. I do Pharmacist Letter and the American Medical Association. Those are the websites that I normally use when I look at things. And the whole difference is on the 3 pages of that company that had their faculty listed and all of the things they do had no citing of any statement. They had no sites, no study sites. When I went on the first NIH website to talk about general, how it's used in acute general anxiety, the first page had 27 study sites or 27 letter sites. So is that overkill? Probably for the lay public, but that's the difference. So if you're reading a website and you see that on your first page that probably has, 150, 200 words on it, and there's no sites, or one that has 4 sites, or one that has 25 sites, you may want to choose the one in the middle just to see. And click on that site because the link will take you right to that study so you can see whether it's done. Now, was the study done in Germany, let's say, and the population that they used was 700 people, and it was done by Professor so-and-so, or was it done in Joe's garage with 3 guys after the band played?
that will tell you that.
The studies will tell you at the end what their methodology was. They will, if it's a published study. They will tell you that. It's a very difficult and concerning issue. Are you using it? Do you want to use it topically or do you want to use it orally? You don't have to answer these. These are just rhetorical questions. If you're using it topically, I don't think you have to be as strict in looking because you're not going to absorb a lot of it. Unless they're using something that's very quick to get through your skin system. Maybe their solvent is DMSO, which goes right through our skin, so you don't know.
The 0.3 THC. Does it show up in a blood test?
Yes,
It does.
Yes.
So it shows up as.
if
what
they're
it is.
testing for THC.
Right.
And it depends on the specificity of the lab. Now, I don't know what all those are, but yes, for drivers of commercial drivers, it's important because they don't know when they're going to get called. They just get called,
But
and
the
they have to go.
0.3 will show up.
If their specificity is 0 tolerance for THC, it will show up. I don't know what their specificities are, and that's a really good point. But laws are changing already. Laws are changing for that because, for instance, because now marijuana is legal recreationally and medically in Massachusetts, people want to have their records expunged for marijuana offenses. Because when they go to look for a job, it says they have a record. And some people don't look to see what those offenses were. So it says, oh, you have a record. That's it. If Desmond only had marijuana charges and it was only small amounts of marijuana charges, then why should he be penalized? I'm not saying yes or no that he should or shouldn't be. That's just the thing. So things are changing. Yes, sir. 9 days. You can, if you smoke a marijuana joint, that is,
Whereas other drugs, 2 days, 3 days.
well, the rule is 5 half-lives. A half-life is the amount of time our body takes to remove half of that dose. So if you took 100 milligrams and 3 days later you had 50 milligrams, then your half-life is 72 hours. So that's what they go by. And in 5 half-lives, the drug will be still in your system because you can't get to 0 when you're always removing half. But it will be negligible in 5 half-lives. Marijuana will stay in our system for 9 days. They can find it in your hair follicle 9 days later. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day.